Hi everyone, I am Dr. Muhammad Tawab. I am resident physician doing my training in physical medicine and rehabilitation from Pakistan. And today we have a very wonderful guest here with us, Dr. Rochelle MD, who is actually a triple board certified physiatrist. And she is a PM&R specialist, and then she has done her subspecialty in pediatrics and as well as pediatric rehabilitation. So she works mostly with, she has interest in cerebral palsy and spasticity management. And we are very excited for her to have joined us today. And she has recently worked on the Rehabilitation Competency Framework. And we are really excited for you, Dr. Rochelle, that you are here with us today. And we would really like to talk about it. So how are you, Dr. Rochelle?
Yes, thank you so much for having me today. Yes, this is an opportunity perhaps to share with you some pointers about the WHO Rehab Competency Framework. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, so Dr. Rochelle, this is Competency Framework is actually, I have found this thing to be very inspiring. So if you would like explain to us that in a very brief manner that what is it actually?
I can definitely try to explain. I don't know how brief I can be, but but I guess I just wanted to kind of curtail us back a little bit, right? Like what this rehabilitation competency framework is for. I think we have to kind of chart it in such a way we're in why this, right? This is technically only a part of the overall or the overarching mission and vision that, together with the WHO, and all the rehabilitation professionals around the world is definitely clamoring for and is much needed. So because of the number of disability, persons with disability around the world, as you see in the WHO report on disability in December 2020, that we now have 1 billion people around the world with some form of disability. And even where it is right now, we know we have problems between, access, a problem of access to care, a problem of a workforce to be able to provide the services for these individuals with disability. Also the culture, right? How people see disability. So it does have a lot to do also with education and information dissemination and all that. So if we look at this, so we only see the rehabilitation competencies, one of the parts of it, but it is a global kind of approach to try to tackle this big problem, that if we don't do anything right now, we're already behind how much more in a couple more years, 10 years, 20 years from now. And so this is a whole big project, part of the Rehabilitation 2030 mission and vision initiative. It's a call for action. So that's why now we're going to focus a little bit more on this part of this, because it doesn't also stay in isolation. As we said, access, right? From like, how do we provide the care, but how do we provide the care appropriately or properly, right? So you might have, for example, you might give all the equipment, but how are these people able to use this? How do they know how to use this? We need the workforce, we need trainers, we need rehabilitation workers to be able to, first of all, bring it to them, provide it to them, and of course, teach them how to be able to use it appropriately. So that's why it's all kind of interconnected. And as we said, while they're also working on access through primary health care, they're along with the rehabilitation intervention packages, so that it shows like what does it take to try to help take care of a patient or an individual with, for example, a new spinal cord injury, a new stroke, and all those. And so the competency framework is basically a tool for us to be able to use how to try to be able to, first of all, maybe train or make sure that the competencies are appropriate for the workforce that we are trying to raise up for this next generation and next couple of years. So that is kind of a little bit in a nutshell of an overall view. This rehabilitation competency framework is basically, I see it more as if you have you have so many things on your table, right? You have like books to read, you have papers to write on, how to put them all together. I feel like this is this provides a structure.
Yes.
So you know how one of these things will be interrelated. For example, if you are trying to put together a training program, like what are the components? We may have all the components to try to teach knowledge, but how do we know we are teaching it appropriately? And how do we know that it is being learned and applied? What are the competencies that we expect before we say that somebody, is like, yes, you're trained, you know what you're doing, you can go out and start providing the service. So those are the things that are going to be the main things in a what we call a competency-based education or training. So the framework helps provide that guide to be able to put it all in together.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with it. And the framework is actually the core structure, that is related to rehabilitation. And the best thing about it is that it is applicable in all parts of the world. Now, I am from a lower middle income country, and when I read this, and I can say, okay, these are the things that I can like implement in my country as well. So this is a very good thing about that. So coming to that, as you know that most of our listeners today are physiatrists. So how can as we physiatrists, adapt this framework in our current teaching programs and training programs in our own hospitals and clinics?
Mm-hmm. Right. So this is, as we could see as physiatrists as well, like we also don't stand as an island. So there's a couple of things that you look around. First of all, is if we're looking at it from an education training standpoint, because it's education, it's usually kind of the first thing that comes into your mind, right? So we prepare all these learning objectives. And then you have, okay, how do you implement these? In what form of activities? Are you going to teach these things, by, video, virtually? Well, how about hands-on? But before you even lay those out, you actually go first to what output or what outcome do you want at the end? And then you actually trace it backward. So you in a competency-based education, that is one of the different things too that's probably that people will see who might be kind of in the era of a traditional type of education, right? So this is really more in the realm of using competency-based training or education. So it does not depend on the length of time, but it's about the competency. What if somebody became competent, in a shorter period of time? Would you try to still keep going on, or rather you'd release that person? So this is not necessarily time dependent, but it can also be tailored according to what the individual's expectation of the outcome or the competency that's expected after the course. Because sometimes it could be shorter time or longer time, or you may have to adjust the curriculum as well to make it more, applicable to the particular person or what the particular output that you're trying to achieve. So that is probably one thing for some people who, or some areas of the world who may not be used to the competency based type of training. That's the one big difference. So let's say, for example, if you want to focus on the education and training, so you look at the competencies. What first? What are the things that you expect as a PM&R physician or a PRM physician, for example, in Pakistan? What is the you might have to look at first? What is the need? What is the expectation out there? What PRM services is the
Yes,
standard of care? Then you go back and train, then that's where your curriculum basically would be based on. How do you teach? Let's say for you need to be able to treat and see and provide consultation and provide treatment for example, a stroke patient. Then
yes,
what are the things that you need to do and learn to be able to do so? So that's why it is something that is also a very dynamic. It should be dynamic because with what are the standards of care that is now being at the forefront versus what is the basic care, and it may depend on where you are. And so that's why the company doesn't tell you like you have to do this curriculum. That's not what it is. But you have to really adjust it based on where you are, what services you're able to provide. And maybe in the beginning it might be, just a small portion, and then later on you would have to change it again as you move on and have more services that can be provided. So I think one other thing I wanted to maybe also emphasize that this is not only limited to the education or what we call postgraduate training education, like what we call in residency.
yeah.
You would also need to know, like, okay, for example, if you graduate as are you a resident in training?
Yes, yes. Yeah, yeah. I am a resident in training.
So you would have to have also like it goes beyond you. So, but after you finish the training, is there a regulatory board to say that yes, you finished this training and you are recognized as a PRM physician? And then also, are there positions for you to work as a PRM physician? So it really involves the whole community. So the professional regulation or like the professional board and all that would also use this to take a look at, okay, what should we expect? For example, what do I expect from Dr. Tawab if, I give you this license or like, this certification to be a PRM physician, what am I expecting for you to be able to provide services for? Um, so I think that's kind of more heavy on the education, but you also want to, this can also be used in various other sectors in the community. How is care provided? Then you have the ability to say, these are the things that are needed um, from a care standpoint. And how about employers? Like they would need to know, it's like, okay, if I'm going to hire a PRM physician, what do I need to look for? What are the
Yes,
that's expected? And also, I think as you raise that standard to a standard, you also eventually kind of also provide that environment and education for the service users, meaning the individuals that we serve. What am I expected? What do I expect from a PRM physician? Or what do I expect from a physical therapist, a physiotherapist? So it's not just physicians. It really encompasses even the whole rehabilitation team. So that's the exciting part of it. It's not just the physicians, but any rehabilitation worker. And so from a low resource, a very low resource country to a high resource country, I think you would be able to tailor it however you need for it to be as a reference.
yeah, and I think this framework even has the potential that even the governments they can utilize this as a basis, to decide which of their rehabilitation hospitals, what competencies their hospitals should have, and what competencies their hospital staff should have, and then they can sort of make a regulatory board of a national level, and it can very well help in that as well. So this is a very dynamic thing, from starting from the very beginning, starting from the, you know, one small institution. It can be applied up to whole on a national and as well as an international level as well. And I personally believe that it is quite right time that we have this document right now, so we can just get on a straight path and, progress forward and take rehabilitation, in the coming years by 2030, I wish that we sort of like increase it to that level that we are able to actually give this so much service to our patients and people around us. And then the fact that this is a competency based document, and I personally believe that this is a sort of, a modern way of teaching, that you have like identified the competencies at first, and now you're going to go back instead of giving the curriculum to the people and telling them now you have to like know this and know that, etc., etc., but nobody knows what are the competencies that one should achieve. So I really like this factor about this document, that you have like chalked out all the competencies that one has to achieve, and then one can like go about it, in his own way. So
the competence here also can vary, because as you said, that will be the actual competencies, the details of those, that will definitely entail a lot of work. This is actually, when I was thinking about it, it was like, wow, I really have yet to learn about curriculum development. But, it's huge. This is not just like, oh yeah, they do the step by step. But if you look at it, you have a lot. First of all, the nice thing is it gives you a guide, a pathway, as you said, right? Like, okay, before I start this, who are the people who needs to be on the table with me? All right.
Yes.
What do I need? And then what resources? Because you don't have to redo everything. There's all these like things that, okay, what is the standard in one country? You can adopt some of those that are applicable to you and not adopt those that are not applicable to where you are. And then if there is something that you wanted to adopt, and then later on you modify it over time, and you want to make sure you have the ability to evaluate the process. Is it working? Is it not right? And then you can even change it to adapt to what it should be more appropriate for you guys. So for example, teaching it because you have to go to rural areas. Oh no, I can't have all my patients come to me every week. Okay, how can I send somebody to do that, or should we do virtual? Then you adapt it to whatever works for your location, for your community to start with, and later on even to your country.
Yes, exactly.
And then small, so you could do it either way.
Exactly. I believe that there is an online version of this framework also coming out. So can you tell us about it as well? Okay, when will it be available?
The online, which one? The training?
The online interactive online version of RCF.
Oh, okay. I think I am not familiar with the online interactive yet. I can ask Jody Mills. Okay. She'll actually be with us. So, well, I'm going to do a shameless plug if I may, since you asked. So we are going to do an overview to introduce this WHO Rehabilitation Competency Framework at the ISPRM Virtual Congress. So I wanted to invite you all June 15. It is at, I believe, 2:20 at Rome time. So join us. So Jody Ann Mills is a physiotherapist, but she has been the point person when in developing these rehabilitation competency framework. And there's definitely a lot of resource people and experts who have contributed, and it's been a privilege definitely for me, and it's a learning process for me to be part of the technical working group, but there's definitely a lot for us to learn and explore. And so on that webinar, it's only a 1 hour, but we will try to explore it a little bit more. And there will be future trainings and webinars will be provided by the WHO as well, with regards to just the overview of the Rehabilitation Competency Framework. And there are a lot of the handbooks that they have available online for free. But I think, Muhammad, I think you actually bring a good point as well. I think this is where, when we hear from you guys, okay,
Yes, exactly.
all the things that we need, how can we start this, right? What type of training or what type of resources can we ask to try to be provided in order for somebody to kind of go for this project? Because these projects are not just like a quick thing. This is going to be a long term. Because if you see,
Exactly.
right, this is going to be carried out for years. And so it is, even though we say, okay, it's all paperwork, documentations and stuff, like it's more than that. So it does take a while, and it does take a lot of people to put things together, and to have that commitment to move it forward. But yes, I think that would be wonderful as well for anybody who wants to try to adopt this, because this is relatively new. I was asking the WHO, Jody, as well, like, do you have samples of how this has been adopted? And she said, well, we just released this year. So we don't have any adopters yet, or like we haven't tried it yet. So this is where I think everybody across the globe would have a huge contribution, let's say, to see, okay, how did you use this, in whatever scale in your country, and then provide feedback. And then also we can develop a community of, oh yeah, I did it this way, and this is how, I ran into trouble with this, or this worked out for me. This process was a little kind of, we need to provide more guidance in this. So this, I think this would be much more also helpful moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so before we wind up this interview, I mean, I would like to ask you that what actually motivates you, by doing so much. I mean, you do research, and you have now this rehabilitation competency framework, and you have your ongoing practice as well. So what motivates you? What is your daily source of motivation for this hard work and stuff like that?
Well, it really is a privilege and an honor to be part of, the PRM community, and to be able to serve our brothers and sisters with disability. And I think, I guess in rehabilitation, right, you see how small things make a big impact in other people's lives.
Yes.
And so, sometimes it doesn't even have to be a prescription.
Exactly.
It's just standing next to them, hearing them out, and just providing, first of all, a listening ear. And, even just having that compassionate care, and then giving them that, the respect and dignity. Just one to start with. And then the next thing you know, they'll even be the one teaching you what to do. We learn a lot from them too. So going back to the values, so I think that's one of the things, like for me and my patients, and for the kids, I like it, I play with them, but there's a lot of hard decisions as well, hard conversations with the caregivers, with the parents, but it's all makes it so much fun, as well as you see, as they grow older, how they go through life, not in spite of, but but with whichever they have, and they try to make and live life to the fullest. Then aren't we inspired enough, right? So
Yeah,
it makes us like, oh, I'm technically able-bodied, but look at this person. So I think we also learn from them, and we really also are inspired with how they go through life, and we learn from them, and how they how they meet up with challenges. So I just wanted to emphasize, I guess, I don't know, with the values, as you said, with the core values and the beliefs,
yes.
that's part of this competency framework. So I think that was one thing too that I remember we had this discussion. How do we, what is the core? Do we put in the competency as a core? We whichever. But I'm glad that I think we all agreed, like, the values and the beliefs would be in the core of the competency.
Exactly.
And what are these values? I just wanted to kind of name them. So the values are compassion and empathy, sensitivity and respect for diversity, dignity and human rights, and self-determination. And I think with self-determination comes empowerment, right?
Exactly.
And then the beliefs, we as physiatrists, like we believe functioning is the central to the health and well-being. And we want to have a family or patient or person-centered rehabilitation program or care. And we know already this is not just one person. This is a collaborative effort with the person as the core, empowering them. And it's not just a one-time thing. It is a continuum of care.
Lifelong process. It is a lifelong process.
Right. So
yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Rochelle, for giving us time and for having such a wonderful talk. And I really enjoyed this talk, and I hope that our viewers will also enjoy it. And I hope they all are as excited about this as we both are,
Yes. Well, yeah, thank you. It is definitely exciting. So yeah, we do want to hear from you guys as well. Send something in through the ISPRM. We would love to hear from you. The Education Committee is also committed to this, and but I think this is what, especially with the WHO, provide your input. There's webinars as well that they will be putting out. And then so I think together we can continue to make the most of what we have here and develop it further.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Dr. Rochelle.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Tawab.